if they don't buy in.
We sometimes talk about facilitation, and we're not trying to sell services here necessarily, but the idea of having somebody from the outside facilitating that process, by and large, is regarded as being a better way of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been in management team meetings where the stakes, you know that the decisions that need to be made, the stakes are huge for some of the people in that room. They're going to affect them directly. And at the outset of our broadcast here this morning, I mean, one of the things we said was change is personal. So you can almost understand why certain members of a management team will be half-hearted about certain things, because they're thinking of themselves. Yep. I think, but at the same time, you're making big decisions that will affect not just them, but affect a lot of other people, probably affect the future of the business. So there is a responsibility on the part of the leaders, be it the chief executive, to make sure that it is a rigorous process, because when you're making decisions, they're going to be challenged. So the output of that process needs to be strong. Which is, coming back to your point, Peter, I think what does work is where you get an external facilitator in just to manage the process and to address directly issues like engagement and commitment.
And also to bring up issues that maybe people don't want to focus on.
Ruthlessness.
Because it could be some of the founders have to go, or it could be that the main product we offer is it's past the sell-by date and we have to shift, or the service we offer. And so there are people hanging out, that was my baby, I brought that in here. This company was built on that. What do you mean we've got to change? It's the external facilitator can say, look, we've got to raise this issue. Yeah. You're not facing the dead fish on the table or whatever it is.
Okay, a couple of things that can come in here. What we would like to look like has to be upfront. That's the vision. I think we're agreeing with that.
Absolutely.
We've said that. Another one says, how do we avoid change programs being a personal whim of one or two directors with personal agendas? Now, there's somebody with a very specific. I hope somebody doesn't recognize. People don't recognise themselves in there. What do you think?
Again, I think that's a question of getting everybody around the table, having the external facilitator there who has the experience of knowing that, and of doing some good analysis at the start to find out what the real issues are facing the company. I mean, one of the things that sometimes I use when I'm working with a group like that is what are the things that will inhibit our success going forward, and what are the things we must protect to ensure success going forward. So you're not so that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I think we'll probably address this in more detail later on, because it's got to do with maybe with the communication side of things when we're at it. So just looking at this process of setting out our strategic direction and the strategic scope. Looking at, we have everybody in a room, we put them together, we bring in all of the good data that we can get our hands on, and we facilitate this in making it happen. Okay, so what happens if there are certain people in the room who won't engage with that?
I think it has to be called. It has, whether it's an external facilitator or a chief executive. Because, I mean, at the start here, what we said today was, why do some programs fail and why do some programs succeed? And in that dynamic alone, you're probably making a huge decision or getting a big insight into in terms of will it succeed or not. If the commitment or engagement isn't there at senior management level at the very outset, it probably is one of the reasons why change programs fail.
I think absolutely. Okay, that's where the leader comes in. That's where the chief executive comes in and has to deal with that.
In a practical sense, because again we want to be very practical about what we're talking about here. How long should that process be? If somebody says, okay, we've got to do something about the way the organisation is going at the moment, it's going to take fairly substantial, maybe fundamental change. Let's get into our analysis and then get moving on. Yeah. How long? What are we talking here? A couple of half days? Are we talking about a couple of 2-hour sessions? Are we talking about what?
We're certainly not talking about weeks. So we're talking about days rather than weeks, I think, nowadays.
So the setup of that would be what makes it ideal.
I think what's ideal is probably a few sessions as opposed to one big session. Yeah. Because you'll find out things at one big session, some of which we've covered, like we need more information. We need to take legal advice. We need to, and of course sometimes the very wise approach, I think, which when you're making a big decision, sleep on it. Yep. You could have covered a lot of ground in one day. Just say, let's sleep on it and come back in a few more days, because you get a different perspective on it. And
to think outside the box, look at our options. Are the options to downsize? Are the options to merge with somebody else? Are the options to sell on? Or what are the options?
Okay, but the thing is to come to a decision at some point, because there may well be obviously lots of competing views around the table. Again, in making that decision happen, facilitator, I suppose, really helps that to happen as well, and narrowing it down and come up with actual specific things that we're going to do.
Well, to ensure that everything is looked at, because I mean, it is naturally that management will look at all the hard side, and we look at the data, especially when they're under pressure. But you must consider the cultural change or the soft side of change as well, and say, look, what kind of attitudes have we, what kind of loyalties have we got, and what kind of values have we got, and how can we go forward based on those as well. So there is the hard side, but there's also the soft side of change. Actually,
And I think you need to think of your analysis in terms of what's coming down the road. You're going to have to stand up in front of possibly hundreds of people and present it, where it's open to rigorous it's
scrutiny.
open to scrutiny.
Yeah.
Scrutiny is the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
So, work back from that and say we need to make good decisions here.
Okay, guys, we're coming close to the end of our time, but just if we're talking about this particular part of the thing, which is the strategic review, if there were 2 or 3 kind of takeaway points, we can put them that way, that people would take away with them, what would they be? In relation to ensuring that you have a successful strategic review.
Well, I suppose, first of all, that you have a review, that you sit back and involve those who should be involved at various stages in the review, the management team, that they buy into it, and that you develop then a change kind of plan as a result of that, so as we all know where we're going to, and that everyone buys into that. And moving on from that to the wider spectrum, then as you develop some sort of a comms strategy to engage with staff and unions as appropriate.
Yeah, and I'd say make good decisions that are based on good information. That's the first thing, and that will survive rigorous scrutiny.
So really, we said first thing, have one. Second thing is make sure that your information is
good,
is valid.
Absolutely.
and your decisions are robust. Or, that your analysis is robust.
Yes.
And the third issue, I think that we're all agreed on, as absolutely critical, is engagement and commitment.
Yeah.
That the people who leave that room, if they've made decisions, they're committed to them.
Okay, we're going to leave it there because it's come up to 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And we've all got to get to our day jobs. Just to say that I hope that was very useful for you, and be very interested in getting your feedback and letting us know what else we should include in going forward from here. What we're going to do next week, we're going to have a look at the design of the program, of the change program, and we're also going to start looking at communications. We reckon communications probably take 1 or maybe 2 sessions to have a look at. But thank you very much for joining in. From myself, from Mick, and from John, thank you very much for looking. Give us your comments. Have a good day, have a good week, and slán go forward.